welcome back to AmourologyEd. I'm Krista. I do alternative lifestyle and sex education, and last week we talked about lesbians. Today we're going to be talking about gay, and then you might be able to see where we're going to go next after that. But today we're going to be covering some of the history of the word. We're going to be talking about the stigma around it and kind of the persecution, and then the different ways that the term is used, both in history and in modern language. So thanks for joining me. As a lot of people know, gay was first coined as a term to mean light and joyful and showy. And so they can find the term dating back to early 14th century. However, the etymology of the term still remains largely disputed. They have ideas, but nobody really knows where the term comes from.
I don't really know what to do now.
And it has changed a lot throughout the course of history. By the late 17th century, gay had started to take on this promiscuous meaning as being described as addicted to pleasures or uninhibited by moral constraints. So lots of things were described as gay. A female prostitute was described as gay. Brothel was described as gay. Anything kind of outside of the moral realms and into more the promiscuous pleasure realms. By the mid-20th century, gay had kind of taken on this really hedonistic and uninhibited lifestyle meaning, as opposed to straight, which had always been used to describe something really serious.
Why so serious?
And that's how that kind of started to shift. It wasn't until the 1960s, and largely in Western society, that gay became adopted by men to describe a sexual orientation. And so this is where we really see the modern connotation of gay arise. In fact, throughout Europe, homosexual activity by men was largely illegal and really heavily criminalized out there. So to describe someone as gay before the Sexual Offenses Act of 1967 meant that you were really seriously accusing them of criminal activity, and it was really, really offensive. After the 1967 Act, we started to see that change once it was legalized, and people started kind of adopting that to be an identity. Unfortunately, about the same time that gay was being adopted by homosexual men as an orientation, it took on this separate connotation in Western society that meant something that was stupid or lame or is usually referred to as an inanimate object for something that someone disapproves of. And while that has largely been retracted, it really seriously caused a lot of deterrent in the gay movement, in the gay rights movement and LGBTQ movement in Western societies, because it was used in this really, really derogatory way. Now, we see gay used as an adjective and a noun to describe the community and the practices and the cultures of homosexuality. Now, there is not really a difference between gay and homosexual. However, people use them very differently, and some prefer one over the other. Some reject the idea of homosexual as a label, as an identity label, because it sounds really clinical. It sounds like it's just the act of doing it rather than attributing the romance and the relationship into it. And a lot of people think that it really harps back to its days when homosexuality was considered a mental illness. So they reject that idea that they are considered this thing that for so long was criminally punished. On the other hand, some people reject the idea of gay as an identity label because it has such a negative connotation, particularly because of the way that it was used in slang for so long. And they kind of view it as something that's undesirable, and that's viewed by a lot of modern society as something that's undesirable as well. in the end, you get to decide what you call yourself, what your identity label is. This is just information as to why people have made the decisions that they made, and any of those decisions are okay if that's what you need. Well, that is the show for today. Thank you so much for joining me. Next week, we're going to be talking about bisexuality, given, we're just going down the alphabet. I may couple that in with some pansexuality, just because given the current debate on bi versus pan right now, that'll all make sense later. As always, you can find me at AmourologyEd.net, on all social media at AmourologyEd. You can join my Facebook group. Again, I'm getting ready to start a Patreon, potentially. I'm still kind of getting there. We'll see. I am hosting some events coming up, so please check those out. You'll be able to find them on my Facebook group and on my website. And stay tuned for some bonus featured, bonus something content right after this. Now we see that gay has become used as an adjective and a noun to describe. What does it describe? By the late 1700s, by the late 17th century, why did you say community twice? Some reject the idea of homosexuality as a way of Some reject the idea of homosexuality as a